Hello and welcome to this Pong tutorial for Unity. I'm going to dive straight in and go to Unity Hub. I'm going to start a new project, 2019.4.16F1. I'm going to choose the 2D template. I'm going to give the project name Pong Tutorial, and it's going to go into my Unity tutorials. I'm going to create. Okay, while that's cooking, we can take a look at what we're going to build today. So this is basically what Pong looks like if you've never played it before. So while that's starting up, let's take a look at Pong and the different elements that we have here. So first thing we have is the ball in the middle of the screen, so that's going to be the first thing we're going to look at. The ball is going to shoot off either to the right or to the left at the start of the game. Then the paddles, we're going to be able to move those up and down on the y-axis, and the ball's going to bounce. I don't think it's going to bounce quite like that, but you get the idea. It's going to bounce off the paddles. We've got walls. You can't really see them here, but there's a white wall at the top and a white wall at the bottom, and the ball's going to bounce off these as well. In green, we've got two goals. When the ball collides with these green goals, we're going to add to the scores, and the scores are there at the top of the page. And just to mention it, we do have a left paddle there as well. I think I've circled everything now. The ball, the paddles, the four walls, or two walls and two goals, and the score. It's quite a lot for us to get through to put this up. I'll try to keep it to one video. Let's see how we go. Okay, so we're all loaded up and ready to go, so let's take a look. So this is the Unity editor. We've got our menus across the top, file menu and so on. And we've got our toolbar with some useful tools that we'll look into in more detail as we go through the tutorial. We've got the hierarchy window, which shows all of the game objects that are in our scene view, including the main camera. We've got a scene view and we can see all our game objects, and we can see the camera in white. We've got our game screen where we can see the actual gameplay. That's in a blue background at the moment. And then in the inspector, we've got our main camera and all the properties for that camera. It's got a transform, it's got the camera properties, and it's got an audio listener. So we'll look at the audio listener perhaps towards the end of the tutorial. The other things we'll change the background now. So we want a black background, so click on that and drag that all the way to black. Then you can close that down. And now our game screen has the classic black background for Pong. If we look down at the project view here, we've got our assets, scenes and packages. If we go into scenes, we'll find our sample scene. Now would be a good time to rename this. So let's rename it to Pong Game Screen. Reload. Sorry, let's try that again. I'm having issues with my keyboard. Thought I'd solve them, but there we go. Pong game screen with spaces this time, and reload. So the first thing that we want in our scene is the ball. So we're going to right click and create empty, and we're going to call this ball. There's nothing for us to see yet, so we need to add component sprite renderer. There we go. Still nothing for us to see, so in the sprite, click on this little dot, and we're going to choose the knob. Close that down. Now we will have something to see. If we go to the game screen, we can see our ball there in the middle of the game screen. It looks a bit small. Let's try and make it a bit bigger. I think 4 is about right on the X and the Y. Don't have to worry about the Z because it is just a 2D sprite. We also need the ball to move. So let's give it a rigid body 2D. That will allow it to move. It's dynamic. Mass will turn right down to 0.1 so it doesn't go bashing everything to pieces. We'll get rid of the angular drag. We'll get rid of the gravity scale. And down in the constraints, we're going to freeze the rotation on the Z-axis. It's a plain white ball, so there's no point in having any rotation in it. So turning that off will stop some weird bugs getting into the game. Okay, so that's most of the ball set up. Now, we said the ball is going to fire off either to the left or to the right on the toss of a coin. So we're going to add another component, and that is going to be called ball. And that's a new script. And create and add. If we go into our assets folder, we can see that ball script. Let's right click and create a folder for that. We're going to call that folder script, and then we're going to grab the ball, .cs into the scripts folder, and then we'll double click to open it on Unity. And here we go. We've got a few using statements. These are the libraries that we're using. We've got system collections generic, and the Unity engine. That's all we're going to need for now. This is a public class called ball, and it inherits from the mono behavior. And we've got two methods that are called by Unity when this class or this game object or mono behavior starts and when it updates. The first thing we want to do when this ball starts is to set a random velocity. So we need to create a method. This is going to be a private, which means it can only be accessed within this class. It's a void, I mean, it doesn't have any return type, and it's called set random velocity. Velocity with a C. And we're going to put open and close curly braces at the open and close parenthesis. Let's get that down on the line. Cool, there we go. So set random velocity. I mentioned a coin toss, so here's a good little snippet for a coin toss. We're going to use random dot value is less than 0.5f. Curly braces. So random dot value gives us a value anywhere between 0 and 1. So if that's less than 0.5, then there's a 50% chance it's going to be less and a 50% chance it's going to be more. So then we can use an if else structure to decide how we're going to react in these different cases. So if we get heads, we are going to move ball right. Otherwise, we're going to move ball left. Let's bring those back a bit. There we go. So we set something up called the rigid body. So we're going to put a variable at the top of this class, rigid body 2D, and we're going to call that rigid body 2D. Let's get rid of the N. There's a small r on that one if you notice. And we need, when we start, we need to get a reference to the rigid body that's on our ball game objects. So rigid body 2D equals get component, rigid body 2D with a capital R this time, open and close parenthesis. And there we are, we've got our reference to the rigid body 2D. So we're either going to move the ball left and move the ball right. So to move the ball, we're going to use a rigid body, and we're going to change the velocity. And what are we going to change it to move right? Well, we're going to change it to a new vector 2. And what we need is an X and a Y here to represent right. So let's just have a quick look at vectors. So vectors basically have an origin, that all of these origin in the middle, and then they have a point to which they go, and they also have a magnitude, which is the length of the vector. 1, 2, 3, 4 of these are unit vectors pointing north, east, south, west, or up, right, down, and left. And then we've got these diagonal ones. These aren't actually unit vectors. It's slightly longer than unit vectors, but just for the sake of simplicity, we've got them as -1, -1, 1, 1, just so you can follow there. So if we want the ball to go right, X and Y coordinates, or the vector, needs to be 1 in the X and 0 in the Y. So we go across 1 in the X and 0 in the Y. And conversely, to go left, we go -1 in the X and again 0 in the Y. So that's a bit about vectors. So to go right, that's 1 in the X and 0 in the Y. Just out of interest, you can say vector 2 dot right, and that will give you the same result as the new vector 2 with 1, 0. We want this to have some kind of speed to it, so let's times it by speed. Basically, with vector multiplication, you can times a vector which has 2 components, an X and a Y, by a variable, but in this case a float, called speed, and that will give you a magnitude of that vector. As we're using a unit vector, 1, 0, then that speed will be the actual speed of our ball. So let's go back to the top of this class and square brackets, serialize field. That just means we can see it in the editor, and it's going to be of a type float, and it's going to be called speed. And just to start off with, it's going to equal 5f. You put the f in to say that it's a float rather than an integer. Okay, now to move the ball left is pretty much the same, but as we saw from the diagram, when we go to the left, we want to move -1 on the x-axis. And again, we're timesing by speed, so it will go at speed 5 to the left in this case. Great, let's save that up. And let's go back into the Unity editor. Control S to save. Let's press play. And the ball goes slowly off to the right and then disappears forever. Okay, that's saved now. Okay, so we need a way to reset the ball. Let's do it on a key press. So if, this is in the update, so this will run every frame. If input dot get button down fire 1, you'll see where that comes from a bit later, but just trust me now. So if we hit fire 1, then we are going to reset. So go down to the bottom of the class, and we're going to do a new private. Actually, we're going to make it public. Public void reset. So this is a method with no return type. That's what we mean by void, and it's public, so it means it can be called by other classes. And basically what this is going to do is going to stop, reposition, and set random direction. So stop, we need the rigid body 2D, velocity, and we're going to set that to something to stop it dead in its tracks. So we're going to use the new vector 2. And what we're going to put in the X and Y here? Take a guess. Yep, it's 0, 0, and that will stop the ball from moving. Then we can reposition. So rigid body 2D dot position equals new vector 2. Now this is not a velocity, this is a position, but again it's got the X and Y coordinates, so we can still use a vector 2 to represent the position. X and Y are going to be 0, 0 again. And the last thing we want to do is set random direction. I might have stymied a couple of you there because we actually already have this, and it's set random velocity rather than random direction. But we can call that method, and that will shoot the ball off, and we're back in play. Okay, let's save that up. Go back into Unity. Let it catch up. Hit play. Goes off to the left. If we click the mouse while we're in the game screen, it's going left, right, right. So that's pretty good randomization there. On a mouse click, we've got the ball going back to the center and then going off in a different direction. Great. We've got the ball set up, so the next thing to do is the paddles. One little fix. When I renamed Pong game screen, it lost the change on the camera, so we need to go to our main camera, background, and just change that background color to black, and hit Control S to save. So hopefully it won't lose that again. Okay, so the next thing to do is the paddles. So we'll go to our scene view, and in the hierarchy we'll do a right click, create empty. I'm going to call this right paddle. Again, we can't see anything yet, so we need to add a component. And we're going to add a sprite renderer. Okay, so we've got our sprite renderer. Now for the sprite, we're going to do something a bit funky. So we're going to go into Inkscape. Inkscape's a free download. I'll leave a link in the description. And basically what we want is a single white pixel. So we'll just quickly bang up a single white pixel in Unity. You can do it in whatever graphic software you like. I'm just doing it in Unity, in Inkscape, so I think that's the easiest. So we go to Document Properties, Units, we go to Pixels, and we'll go 1, 1. Make sure the background color has no alpha, so it's white rather than blank. Otherwise you'll have a single nothing pixel instead of a single white pixel. And then we want to file, export PNG, export as, and we're going to call it single white pixel. Save. and click export, and there, we're done. So it was a very quick foray into Inkscape. There might be some more Inkscape tutorials coming in the future. If anyone's interested in Inkscape tutorials, put it in the comments and I'll have a look at that. I've also got a good recommendation of a website for Inkscape tutorials as well. I'll cover that in a future article. So we've got our single white pixel. Let's just see if we can find it. It's on my D drive, my Unity tutorials, single white pixel, there it is. I'm just going to grab that into the assets folder. So go into our assets folder and we've got single white pixel. I'm going to create a new folder with a right click and we're going to call this sprites. I'm going to drag our single white pixel into the sprites folder, hit right paddle, open the sprites folder, hit right paddle, and then drag that where it says non-sprite. And now we should be able to see our paddle. It'll be obscured by the ball at this moment. So how about if we scale on the Y and say 10? Interesting. 10 is nowhere near big enough. 100. Okay. So 100 by 20. Right. The two tools along the top, they've got the move tool. Then we can grab the arrows and we can move that over here. I think that's still too small, so we'll go to 200. 200 looks about right. Scale 40. 40 looks about right. So there we've got our first paddle. Position, let's change that to 8. That looks pretty good. Y should be 0. Yeah, so we're all set up. Okay, we want to be able to move it up and down, if you remember our introduction. So to move things, we need a, say it, rigid body 2D. And get rid of the angular drag. Again, mass we can leave. Gravity scale 0. And we're going to freeze the rotation, and we're also going to freeze the x-axis, because we don't want it moving on the x-axis, we only want it moving on the y-axis. So that's set up our rigid body. What else do we want to do? We also want to have the moving up and down, so we need to add another component, and we're going to call this paddle, and it's a new script, so create and add a new script. Go into our assets folder, drag it into our scripts folder, open it up, and here we go. So again, we need the reference to our rigid body, so rigid body 2D, we call it rigid body 2D. Just make sure it capitalizes this B. It's a bit of a gotcha. It keeps changing it for me. Rigid body 2D equals get component angle brackets rigid body 2D. We've done this before, so I'm going a bit quicker than usual. In the update method, we're going to get the rigid body 2D velocity, and we're going to set that to a new vector. Vector 2. We don't want it to move on the x-axis, so that's 0. For the y-axis, we need to get input, and we're going to say get axis, and we're going to get the axis vertical, and we're going to times that by speed. So we're going to do another serialized field at the top here. It's a float speed, and it's going to equal 5f to start off with. So now we should be able to move our paddle up and down either with the cursor keys or W and S. So let's save that up and see what we've got in Unity. Give it a while to catch up. Play. So our ball's moving and our paddle is also moving. It's not constrained to the screen at the moment, so you can actually go off the screen. You can't go left and right. And the ball passes straight through it. Okay, so we didn't have collision there, so we're going to go into our right paddle. I'm just going to scroll down, add component, and we're going to add a box collider 2D. Let's just zoom in on the right paddle. That's a double click, and click the edit collider, and we can see the green box just around that is perfectly matched up. So that's really all we have to do there. Excellent. Now we want to get this right paddle, and we want to Control D to duplicate, and we're going to rename this left paddle, and rather than 8 we're going to have it, you guessed it, -8. Okay, let's go back to the main camera and we can see the two paddles on either side. Let's hit play, and oh, the ball still goes straight through. Why is that? Let's have a look at the ball. Sprite render, rigid body 2D, script. We don't have a collider on the ball. For this one we want the circle collider 2D. Let's zoom in on the ball, and we can see the circle collider in green. Now it's a little bit bigger, so let's play with the radius. (0.1, 0.08, 0.09, 0.09 looks just about. Let's say 8.5. I think 8.5 is the... Sorry, I'm going to go back to 9. 9 I'm happy with. Let's save. I'm in play mode. So come out of play mode, and all our changes have disappeared. So we add the circle collider 2D again. We now know that should be 0.09. We'll zoom in on the ball and see that's how we want it. We'll save, hit play, and now the ball hits the paddle and stops. And both paddles move when we use the cursor keys or W and S. Oh, it's moving now slowly. So the ball's kind of stuck. We can still use a mouse key to restart it, but it just gets a bit stuck. So what's going on there? Let's come out of play mode. We'll go into our assets folder, and we need to create a new folder, and we're going to call this folder Physics Materials. And we're going to go into the folder, and we're going to create new Physics Material 2D, and we're going to call it Bouncy. Friction, we don't want any friction. Bounciness, we want 1. Basically, bounciness goes from 0 to 1. 0 is no bounciness. 1 is perfect bounciness. Doesn't lose any momentum at all. So now if we go to our ball, have a look in the rigid body 2D material and drag this into the material, bounce it. So now our ball should bounce. Oh, it bounced. Great. Oh, it just bounced straight wherever we are. Oh, it's gone up a little bit there. It's gone up another little bit. And there it's gone off the screen. So we've got the balls bouncing. They're going off the screen. We've got 2 paddles set up. So let's move on to the next stage. Okay, so the next thing to do is create the top and the bottom wall. So if we take the right paddle and hit Control D to duplicate, you can also use a right click. And we're going to call this right paddle. I'm going to rename it with a right click, top wall. Let's zoom back out to the camera with a double click, top wall. So let's move it around the middle there. So X should equal 0, Y 5, and next let's just drag that back down. On the Y axis 200 is too big, let's go 100, looks about right. And then the scale on the X axis, let's say 1000. Well, that's not enough. Let's say 1800. Oh, it looks close. 1780. That looks bang on to me. We should remove this paddle script. We don't want to move the walls up and down on the cursors. That would be bonkers. Okay, so then go to this top wall, right click, duplicate, and we call this bottom wall. And just drag it down. This is using the move tool to roughly where it should be, and that should be -5. Cool. So now we have. So what we want to happen here is when the ball hits towards the top of the paddle, we want it to bounce off in this direction, and when the ball hits towards the bottom, we want to do it in that direction. So to do that, what we'll do is we'll find out the difference between the position of the paddle and the position of the ball, and that will allow us to then change the angle that this ball goes off. Okay, let's jump in and try and do that. Okay, so to get the ball bouncing correctly against the paddles, we're actually going to put this on the ball script. Okay, cool. So just follow along basically. So we're going to call on collision enter 2D, sent when an incoming collider makes contact with this object's collider. First we need to get the collision point. And we get the collision points by taking the transform dot position dot y of the ball, and we minus the other dot transform dot position dot y, surround that in parentheses, and then we need to divide that by the height of the paddle. So that's other dot collider bounds dot size dot y. And that will give us the collision point. Then we need a bit of a case, an if statement here. So if other dot game object dot tag equals paddle left, paddle right, open close curly braces, else if other dot game object dot tag equals, we'll set these up later as well, let's say paddle left, curly braces. Basically what we're going to do here is we're going to get the velocity of the ball so that's on the rigid body dot velocity, and we're going to set that to a new vector 2. That's going to take -1 as the x-axis because we're traveling in that direction, and then it's going to take in the collision point on the y-axis, and then we're going to normalize that so we get our unit vector, and then we can times it by speed to keep our ball moving at the same speed. So yeah, that looks pretty cool, and we'll just copy and paste that. And if it's the left paddle, then we want it to move that way, right. Okay. So the collision point at the top of the paddle is 1, at the bottom of the paddle is -1, in the middle is 0. And we get that by taking the position of the ball on the y-axis, the position of the paddle on the y-axis. We know one is going to be in with the other because they've collided, and then we divide that by the height or the other collider bound size dot y to get the relative collision point on the paddle, and then we use that in the vector 2, normalize it and times it by the speed to get the ball flying off at an angle. Cool. So we'll save that up. Save that up. Go back into Unity. It's not going to work, but we'll try it anyway. So we've still got the old behavior. And what we need to do on our right paddle, under tags, we need to add a tag and call it right paddle. We need to add another tag and call it left paddle. Right paddle, left paddle. That's enough for now. So on the right paddle, make sure it's right paddle. On the left paddle, make sure the tag is left paddle. Hit play. It doesn't work. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of debugging to find out why this isn't working. So we'll create, first of all we want to go to here to run, create a launch JSON file and select Unity Debugger. If you haven't got this set up, you need to see my video on Unity and VS Code. Hit play, and we've created a breakpoint just inside here. So let's go over and hit play. So we're hitting this part of the code. So that is left paddle. I've called them paddle right, paddle left, and then I've called them left paddle and paddle right. You're probably screaming at me with that one. Okay, that's nice and easy to change. Paddle right, paddle left. I think I prefer those. Let's go into Unity. Let's add two new tags. So paddle right, paddle left, right paddle. If they're called right paddle there. Right paddle, left paddle, paddle right, paddle left. You think I'd have made my choice, wouldn't you? You'd think I'd have already made my choice. Back into add tags. And we'll remove those two. Back into our code. Now to avoid this kind of shenanigans, the best thing to do is actually copy, paste, and then you know it's right paddle, and you know it's all good. Okay, so that's the way you should have done. That's the way I should have done it. Then you wouldn't have had this issue. Now, hopefully, it will work. Yes. And we do get an incredibly slow ball. So on the ball script, there's a speed of 5. It's a serialized field, so we can see it in the inspector. So let's change that to 10. That looks about right to me. Top ball and bottom ball are floating away into the distance. Oh, fantastic. I do these mistakes on purpose, so we learn all about game development and all about the problems that we have. Now, why? We've got a rigid body on the walls, and we don't really need a rigid body because we've got a box collider. So let's just remove the rigid bodies from the walls. Okay, so we've removed the rigid bodies from the walls. The ball, change that to 10, and let's hit play again. So hopefully my walls won't fly away this time. Not quick enough. Now we've lost that. Okay, we're back in play. Some strange goings on. Ooh, there we go. Should have scored a point there. Well, moving swiftly on from that debacle, we'll now take a look at how to create the goals. So we've got our top wall and our bottom wall. There we are. And all we need to do is take the top wall and right click duplicate and call this right goal. So on the Y it should be 0, X should be 100, and the Y, let's try 1000. Let's try 900. That's good enough to me. And on the X should be a 9. And we're going to change the color to green. Let's bring that down a bit. Green. Okay. And we're going to duplicate the right goal. And call it left goal. And then that's going to be on the -9. Okay, so that's all nice. Now we need to add a new script. I'm going to call it goal. New script, create and add. Go into our assets, drag it onto the scripts folder. Goal. So we're going to create a new on trigger. On trigger.enter. If tag equals I hope I'm getting these ones right this time. Left goal. I'm going to do this. Else if tag equals I don't know what happened there. Let's get rid of those. Right goal. We're going to do this. We're going to increase the right paddle score. There we're going to increase the left paddle score. I'm quite happy there. The other thing we need to do is reset the ball. So let's do there's two ways to do this. Let's do it with a private ball, and we're going to do a ball equals game object. This is something new. It needs a capital. Game object dot find objects find object with tag ball. So we've got lots of tags going on now. So we need to remember to tag the ball and to tag the goals. Dot get component ball. It's very important that we don't just assume that find object with tag ball is going to return us a ball script. We want to get the ball script component off of that game object. And this should allow us to call ball.reset, and it does. Fantastic. So we've got a bit of pseudocode, and we've got the ball resetting. Let's save that. Let's have a look how our game is playing. Give it a while to catch up. Hit play. Yay! Oh, well, I'm saying yay, but that's not what we wanted. It's bouncing off these walls, and it should be colliding with them. We could do a debug to see if the trigger's working. What we're going to do is we're going to go to right goal and we're going to click is trigger, left goal and click is trigger. While we're here, we're going to add some tags. We're going to add the tag left goal. I'm going to add the tag right goal. And we're going to add the tag ball. So let's grab the ball and tag it. Let's get the right goal and tag it. Let's get the left goal and tag it. And just do a save. And let's see what's happening. Oh, nothing. Oh, it worked. So we've got the situation here where only the left goal is working. So check on our right goal, check on our left goal, check on our right goal. It's missing the script. Again, you're probably screaming at me for that one. You forgot the script. You forgot to add the script. Ooh. Ooh. Yes. Okay, so I think that's a fairly major milestone. So we're back in Unity, and we're going to do a heads-up display or a user interface, whatever you want to call it. So the first thing to do is go and add UI canvas. There we go. Now, if you're new to Unity, this bit might be a bit confusing because we've got our gameplay area here, and then our canvas is all the way up here, and it's absolutely giant compared to our small little gameplay area in our main camera. There's lots of reasons why it's like that, but what I want to do is make it a little bit more user-friendly for beginners. So the first thing we're going to do is choose world space, and we're going to choose the main camera like that. So now it's got a camera as well. We need to change the width. It says 760 here. Let's go to 1780. Let's go to let's say 100. let's say 10. Let's say 10. And a height, let's say 20. And we'll go 0, 0. Okay, great. I think I've got those the wrong way around there. So let's just drag it so it's roughly the right size. And then we'll have a look. 0, 0. So we've got 18, 10. So it's game units, yeah? These little squares we've got. So we've got a size of 5, so that's 5 up and 5 down. And it must be 9 across and 9 to the left. So that's our canvas set up. Next we want to add a text object. So right click UI, text. You could use Text Mesh Pro if you want to. We're not going to in this case. It just gives you a few more options to beautify. Let's double click on the text and we can see now that it's an absolute giant text. So go into the canvas and we want to look at the canvas scaler. We're in world mode and there's this dynamic pixels per unit. The amount of pixels per unit to use for dynamically created bitmaps in the UI, such as text. So let's change that to 100. 100. That's got a lot smaller. Let's go to 200. Okay, we're getting somewhere. So, ooh, let's get this roughly where we want it. Now that text looks pretty big, and at the moment it's a font size of 14. So let's go back into our canvas and let's try 300. Let's try 400. I'm quite happy with 400. And our text, let's change the color. We want the color to go to white. Where it says new text, we're going to have a 0. Let's resize this. Great. Now let's move it so it's roughly there. Roughly there, should we say? Okay, so the X position is minus, let's say 1.5. Minus 1.5, and the Y position but why not, let's have it at 3.5. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll right click on that and we will duplicate it. And we'll call this left score. And right score. Left score is there. Right score needs to move over on the x-axis to plus 1.5. Alright, let's select both of those and we'll set them both to central alignment. We'll set the anchor to the top. I'll do more on anchors in future videos. Let's just duplicate that again. So it needs an X position now of 0. Text is that. And we'll rename it. We'll call it divider. Okay. Left score, right score, divider. That's pretty much our canvas set up. Thank you. Okay, cool. So we've got pretty much a working game now. What we're lacking is the actual scoring mechanic. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new game object, and we're going to call this game session. Let's reset it. It's always good practice to reset the position. The only time I wouldn't say to reset the position is with the main camera, because it's got a Z of -10. And if you reset it without thinking and that goes to 0, you might find that things disappear. So it's worth looking out for that. But generally, when you create a new game object, resetting the transform is a good thing to do, so you know where it is. Everything starts at 0. So let's add component, game session, create a new script, create and add. Go into our project folder, assets, game session, drag it into the scripts folder. Sorry about that. Double click on game session. There we go. So the first thing we're going to do is add 2 serialized fields. And they're going to be of type text. We need a new using one in here. So using Unity engine dot UI, and this gives us access to the UI library. So here we go, serialized field, now text, great. And the first one is going to be right score. Please tell me that's what I called them. Let's do a copy and paste. Right score and left score. Cool. Now we're going to have a private integer, which is going to be called left score, and a private integer, which is going to be called right score. Going to add a new method, which is a void reset. We're going to make this public so we can call it from other areas. We're not actually going to use this in this tutorial, but it might be something you need to use to meet some of the additional tasks at the end. So we'll put it in anyway. And basically we want the left score equals 1. Not equals 1, equals 0. And right score equals 0. Okay. And when we update, right score with a capital, dot text, text dot text, I know it's strange, but that's the way it works, equals small right score. Left score dot text equals left score. We've got red squiggly lines. Let's see what they're all about. Cannot implicitly type int to string. So if we want to show an integer in the text, we need to use the toString parenthesis dot toString parenthesis. Okay, so that's our update method done. We've got a reset method done. Now we're going to have a public void increase score. And that's going to have an int player. Let's get rid of those. Let's get that one down. There we go. Okay, so we're going to have a switch statement here based on the player. Curly brackets, curly braces, what we're going to call them. And with case 1, we're going to break. And case 2, we're going to break. Okay, so player can basically either be a number 1 or a number 2. I know we've called them left and right throughout the course. The right hand player is going to be player 1. The left hand player is going to be player 2. We could have created an enum left and right. I don't know why that says network player. It should say int. I don't know what happened there. So it should be int player. Ooh, what is happening? There we go. Increased score in play. Yes, that's right now. We're back in the room. Okay. So case 1 is simply left score plus plus. And that is the same as saying left score equals left score plus 1. Case 2, right score plus plus. Oh, I've got those around the wrong way. You're screaming at me again. You've got it the wrong way around. Dude on the right is player 1. Dude on the left is player 2. I think that is it for our game session. So let's save that up. We need to hook it up. So let Unity catch up. Go into game session and we'll take left score, put it in left score. Take right score, put it in right score. Let's go into the goals. Right goal, left goal, excellent. Let's open the goal script. So we need a game session. Let's see if you can fill that in there. So game session equals what? Equals get component. It equals game object dot find game object with tag game session. Actually, I've changed my mind. We're going to get rid of that. I'm not going to do it that way. This is going to become a serialized field. Game session, game session. Let's put that above private ball. Not in the middle. Let's put that above private ball. So now we can say to increase right paddle score, game small g game session dot increase score and increase the right paddle score. We're going to pass a 1. Increase the left paddle score we're going to add a do. Let's save that up. Go back into Unity. Let it catch up. Okay, so we had a slight bug there where our goals collider stopped working, and basically it was because the goal scripts, we didn't have the game session dragged in. So if we drag the game session in now, try again, drag the game session in now on the right goal and the left goal, then hit play. They're working. Okay, so we still got our controlling both paddles at the same time, so we want to change that. So we're going to go into Edit and Project Settings, the Input Manager, and open out the axis. So vertical and Fire 1 are the ones we've used so far. Fire 1 is on mouse 0. We also want it on R as well for reset. We're not going to implement that, but something that you guys can implement as an extra challenge. In the vertical, we're going to remove S and W as the alternative keys, and we're going to create a duplicate array called vertical2, and that is going to take S and W as the negative and positive buttons. Cool. Now we've got that set up, we can go into our paddle script and set up the update. So here, if tag equals right paddle, else if tag equals left paddle. So we've got two conditions there based on the tags, and we're going to change the velocity. This second time we're going to get the axis vertical 2, so that's going to be the W and S key. Okay, we'll save that up and we'll go back into the Unity editor, wait for it to catch up, hit play. And we've got independent movement. Ooh. And we've got a working game of Pong. Okay. So there's one last thing to add, and that's sound. So let's just take a look. And I've actually downloaded some sounds called Sounds Ping Pong 8-bit. I'll leave a link to this in the description below. And we just want this plop sound. So let's plop that into our assets folder. We need to create a new folder for that. So create folder, I'm going to call it audio. You can call it sounds, I suppose. Going to plop into audio. And on the ball, we're going to add component, audio source. We're going to go into our audio, go back to the ball, and drag that on to the audio source. We don't want to play on awake. Then we need to go into our ball script and audio source, just call it audio for now. In our start menu we want to get hold of that, so audio, can you guess the rest? Get component, angle brackets, and it's audio source. And on collision enter, if it's the right paddle, if it's the left paddle, just whatever it is, we will audio dot play. Oh. Nice and simple. Save that up. Go back into Unity. Hit play. There we go. Brilliant. So we've come to the end of the course. We've gone through quite a lot. We've learnt about the Unity editor and the interface, the hierarchy, the scene view, the game view, the inspector, your project view. We've looked at the game objects, we've looked at UI, we've looked at sound, we've looked at input, we've looked at 2D physics. We've looked at lots of things, so that should really be something to get into. Well done if you've got to this point of the course. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give me a like. If you've got some comments or some questions, please put them in the comments. I'll try to answer everyone's questions. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.